Hello and welcome to our how-to video on the project request feature in Mission Control. Today we're going to be looking at how you can generate projects using the project request feature. So in Mission Control, you can generate a project in a few different ways. So we've covered off the project launcher, we've covered off cloning from a template, as well as auto-generating a project from opportunities. You can also generate a project using the project request feature, and it works similarly to the auto generation feature, but it offers more flexibility in terms of what object you can generate it from. So by default, you can generate a project from project request using the lead, the account, contact, opportunity, or case. But you can also expand this to other objects within your org. So that could be any standard object you've got or any custom object in your org. All you have to do is add in a lookup to that object on the project request object. So you can also specify any fields from the project request that need to be mapped over onto the new project. So this means you can have fields from the object that you want to associate with the project request moved over onto the new project. So there's one part of it where you can use Salesforce configuration to set that up, and the other part of it is done through mission control mapping. So that initial part of configuration, you can set up formula fields or flows to copy over values from your object onto similar fields on the project request object, and then so that is the custom config that you do. And then onto the mission control side of things, you can set up the mapping between the project request and the project, so the new project can pick up those values and store that over there. So let's jump in and have a look at this. All right, so let's start by going over how you can access or how you can go about creating project requests. So to get to the project request, you can use the app launcher to look up project requests, and that will allow you to navigate to that tab. You can also add it to your navigation menu, navigation items. So I've got that added to my at the top here to my tabs. You can also access it from the related list on the object that you're generating it from. So in this example, I've got a custom object called RFP, request for proposals, and I've added the lookup to this object onto the project request object. And that's why I've been able to add this related list on my page layout. And that's another way that I can create it. The main difference of creating it from the list view compared to from the related list is that it would automatically associate it to the parent record here. And that's really the main difference. Before we go ahead with creating a project request, I'll just quickly go over the RFP custom object that I've got and some custom fields and how I'm going to be mapping some of those values onto the new project. So I'm tracking RFPs in my org, and I'd like to have a project generated for it, and I'd like to have all my actions, all my to-do list for the RFP. I'd like to track my time, and I'd like to see all that information in one place. And for that, I'm going to be using the project request feature. So in this instance, I've got some custom fields in there. So particularly these requirement fields in there. So I'm tracking what requirements are needed, what requirements can be handled out of the box, and what would require custom configuration. And I've just divide that into different sections of the project management and skills management and so on. So these are number fields that I've put in. And what I've also done is created a number field on the project so I can capture that value there. And I've also created formula fields that return a number. And those formula fields that return a number would on the project request, that is, and those would reference these values here on the RFP. What this would allow me to do, that's the Salesforce configuration side that you'll need to do. You can obviously use flows to do that as well. But I need to store that information on the project request so that the mission control mapping can pick those values up and then put that onto the new project that gets generated. So hopefully that gives a quick short overview of how that works, but I'll work through setting up the project request and we'll see all that information being transferred over to the new project. So I've got this RFP set up. I've got all the information I need here. I can now, let's say that I just need to go ahead and have a project request set up and then have my project generated. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create a new project request. So you'll see a couple fields in here, like the project name, the budget. So these are just some fields that are by default mapped onto the new project. So the project name obviously would map onto the project name that you get that gets created. The proposed budget would map onto the project budget on the project. And then there are some default values like archived and template would be false, and status would be set to planned. Um, Obviously, these are just the default out of the box configuration, but you can change those mappings, and I'll go through that as well. So let's go ahead and start by putting in details around this project request. So this is going to be for the curl, let's say RFP. And so the project request summary, that's not needed, that's optional, but it would help to provide some more context around whoever's going to be approving this project request or generating that project. So maybe there's multiple people working on it and it needs to get approved. It would be a good idea to add in some additional details just to provide them that context. And obviously, you can add in some other custom fields onto this object and help you try keep that information in one place and help out with that context. But yeah, so for now, we'll just use this field in here to say that this is going to be for the RFP. So the proposed budget, I'm just going to say that's going to be 1,000. I want that on the project, so we'll do that. I've got, what I've done is set up the template. So you will need to have a template set up, and it will basically copy over that same template in this new project that's being generated. Because this is a RFP that I'm doing, there's a set list of things that I normally do within that RFP, and that's what I would like to see on my new project. And I'll go over that template in a bit. But yeah, so that helps me just quickly copy over some milestones and actions that I'm normally working on. And yeah, and then I can go on to edit that, remove certain things I don't need, cancel out certain things, add in new things, and go from there. But this is sort of the baseline or base template that I need. I'll put in a start date for next Monday. We've got a generate project field here similar to the auto generation from opportunities, but I'll leave that as false for now. I'll show you what those requirement fields look like once we generate this new project request, because those are formula fields that won't show up here. I've got a project lookup here. This is something that you don't want to do anything to, because this will be automatically populated. So once the project gets generated, so you can leave that as blank. In this next section here, you've got the requested from section, which will allow you to associate the project request to a certain record. So you can obviously, by default, you can associate it with lead, account, contact, opportunity, or case. But in this instance, I've gone ahead and added the lookup to RFP, my custom object, and then it has pre-populated that. What you can also do is, if you've got similar fields on the on your custom object or standard object, as well as the project request, like in this instance, I've got account and contact on both objects, and I've already tracked that on the RFP. I don't have to pull that in again. You can set up a flow which copies over those values from the from your custom object or your standard object and populates that on the project request. And then you can set up the field mapping to map the account and contact from the project request onto the new project. So that's a few less steps that you would have to go through. So that's just something that you can explore as well. So I've got RFP in there, so I'll go ahead and click save. I've got my new RFP project request record created, and you'll see that I've got some custom fields in there. These are the formula fields that are returning some numbers, number data type, and these are basically referencing the RFP record over here. I can now go over the field mapping. So I've got those fields on the project request, but I need to map these onto the new project that gets created. So this part is the custom Salesforce config that I needed to do, and that I've done in the backend. But now this is the mission control side of things that you would do. Again, those fields you can track using formula fields or flows or other automation within Salesforce. But I've just gone with the bare minimum of formula fields for demonstration purposes. But yeah, so onto the mapping. So I am currently on the mission control tab under, if you go into the control pad, scroll down and you'll see a auto generation field mapping tile here. You can click create and that will open up this table in here. So on the left hand side, you've got your project fields. In the middle, you've got your opportunity fields, and on the right hand side, you've got your project request fields. What this basically says is I've got, let's take the example of amount invoiced. I've got an amount invoice field. When I'm generating using an opportunity, I want to copy over the amount value from the opportunity onto the amount invoice. Similarly, I can specify if I'm using the project request, I actually want the proposed budget to be in line with the amount invoice. In our instance, we're going to be using the requirements fields, and I've set up separate fields on the project for that. So again, similar name on the project. I've made sure I selected the right field from the project request on both of those fields. And I've also added one more here in regards to the project reference. So I want to track the project request number in that project reference field on the project, and I've just gone ahead and selected that. So I can go ahead and click Save to make sure my changes have been saved. That mapping has been created, and now moving forward, any project that gets generated will have that mapping come across in the new project. So I'll go ahead and set that to true. And that's going to kick off a process in the background. It's going to run asynchronously, and it's going to generate a project. It runs asynchronously to make sure that we stay within the governor limits, and it might take a few seconds for it to come through depending on the size of the project. But yeah, so I've got that project in there now. So I'll go ahead and open that up. And I will also show you what my template looks like. So this is my RFP template. I've got a few milestones in there around admin work, documentation, some recording, some demos. Yeah. So now this is the new project that gets generated. Again, it's a copy of that setup that I had in my template. But obviously you can go in and remove stuff, add stuff, whatever it is that you need to do. But this is the base requirement that I needed on this template, and that's what I've got. Okay, I will also go over the mapping that we just did. So I've got a section set up here. So I've got that RFP section. I've got my out-of-the-box requirements fields. I've got the custom config requirements field in there that's copied over those values. And it's also got the project reference number in there. So that's all working. Lastly, we can go over a setting, which, so if I go back to the control pad, this setting basically allows you to determine who the owner of the new project is in terms of Salesforce record ownership. So the setting is called transfer clone records to running user, and I've got that enabled. And what that means is basically if someone else created the project template and someone else owns that record in terms of Salesforce record ownership, you want to have that transferred. If you want to have that transferred over to the person who initiated the project generation from the project request, you'll want to have to check this box. The main use case around this is maybe an inactive user set up the project template and you don't want to run into any issues with that. Or maybe you've set up your project list view filters or report filters to only show my projects, and the person who generated that project may not have that project come through in their report or that list view. Just because they don't really own that record, it's the person who created that template. It may also come up when you're setting up sharing rules, and you've set up sharing rules based on record ownership, and you want to make sure it gets transferred to the right team. So if I'm the project owner, I want to have that shared to my team, and you want to make sure the set checkbox is true, and it would transfer it over to the person who generated the project, and it would then be shared across to the rest of your team if you've set it up like that. But yeah, that's the project request feature. Thank you for tuning into this how-to video on the project request. You can reach out to us if you have any questions via support@aprico.com or submit a ticket via the link here. You can access our user guide, our training videos, our knowledge base, or our learning portal from the links mentioned here. See you in the next one.